This lesson we're going to share tonight, we have entitled it Discipline Issues. Now in this session we're going to attempt to wrap up some of the more common behaviors associated with early parenting. Let me give you some of the more popular topics that we're going to cover. Parents are always interested in. We're going to talk about whining. Yes, I see some are already excited about that. We're going to talk about temper tantrums. And what's the difference between temper tantrums and a frustration tantrum? What about tattletaling? What about sibling rivalry or sibling conflict? What about the three sister sins, the dishonest sins, lying, cheating, and stealing? And do you really have a strong-willed child? So we have a lot to cover tonight. We wanted to spend as much time as we could really in the wrap-up session so we could pull Eric and Julie into this. They have so much wisdom to add. I'm not sure how much time is going to be left over because there's so much to say about these things. First of all, let me just state that all children have the propensity to engage in any one of these behaviors, all right? All children can do that. All children have the potential to whine, throw a temper tantrum, to lie, to cheat, to steal. All of this is basic to human nature. What you need to be aware of is that often the reason some children do it more than other children, and we're going to say this right up front, has more to do with your parenting than it has anything to do with the child's nature. Much more to do with your parenting. In this case, the need to restrain this behavior in a practical way, the need to educate your child, the need to help your child gain self-control. So when we go through all of these, we want you to remember that part of this has to do with you. It has to do with you as parents. You're going to make a big difference in the life of your children as it relates to these issues. And let me also add, I have just a little note here, do not be quick to dismiss the behavior with the phrase, well, that's just the way he is, or that's just the way she is. That's just her. That's just little Billy. That's just little Johnny. Please, whatever you do, don't dismiss it in front of the child, because what you actually are creating, you're going to fulfill your own prophecy. You, in a sense, are robbing the child of the dignity when you say that in front of the child to anyone else. Let's get started. Let's talk about whining. Whining is an unacceptable form of communication. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not a symptom of some psychological disorder. It's not a symptom that a child has something on the inside that he's just got to get out, and if you don't let him get it out, somehow he will be, in fact, sitting in some office when he's an adult trying to explain to the therapist why you never let him communicate his inner being, his inner heart. It's a learned trait. Absolutely, it's a learned trait. Often a child will whine because he wants something that he has been denied. Mommy, I want the Twinkie. Okay, he wants something denied. Or he doesn't want to respond to instructions. And then you get the, I don't want to. It's a learned trait. They learn how to basically verbally manipulate mommy and daddy. And unfortunately, many parents fall into the trap. They don't like whining, but they give in because they think that's the easiest way to take care of it, and it's not. It's not. Children whine because it's a challenge to authority, but it's a subtle challenge. You see, no child is so foolish to challenge his mother and father directly. I mean the average parent and the average child I'm speaking of now. No child is so foolish to say, well, look, I don't like your instructions, lady, and you could take your instructions and take them in the other room. I don't care what you... They're not going to do that. They're not going to... I mean, if this is a child who wants to live to see his next birthday, he's not going to do that. They will challenge through whining, though. It's a subtle form because they have learned with whining, you won't do anything. They could still sound their protest, but you won't do anything. And they can sound their protest through this half-cry communication because they found, well, if I talk directly back to mom and dad, that won't be good. But if I communicate through this whining, I can tell them how I really feel. And they haven't caught on yet. Another reason children whine is because they know it works. They have found that it works. They have found that this woman is easy to wear down with whining. And so every time that we give in to whining, what in fact we are doing is reinforcing the child's behavior. He has a goal. He's found whining to be a vehicle to achieve the goal. And so he's going to continue the process because it works. It works. Now, whining has to be understood in terms of age. Obviously, there is the little ones who have those high chair whines, that those are more because the child has not learned how to communicate. They're in the process of learning, but they haven't learned at all. It more or less reflects a limited vocabulary. Their children are young enough to want to cognitively communicate, but they don't know how to communicate, and so they start this little whining. And you know what is amazing is how mothers can interpret this. I mean, it is amazing to us the little grunts and the little noises that a child in high chair can make. And we're sitting there, we're trying to figure out what was that. And he wants more bread, or he wants a sip from his milk. I mean, it doesn't sound anything like that. Well, when mothers or fathers encourage that type of speech, it's that type of speech that ultimately is going to lead into whining. Now, when we're dealing with whining with the older children, that's different. I mean, now we're talking about a subtle form of passive rebellion. You're going to want to deal with that. You're going to work with that. But with younger children, let me suggest, especially those in the high chair, I want to talk to you about giving them an alternative to whining. They have a need to communicate. They do not have the verbal skills to communicate, okay? But they have a need to communicate. This is where you're going to begin the process of teaching them how to sign. Teach them. From 8 months old and on, start the process. They're old enough to learn. You can start giving them little simple signals, signs, that they can communicate what they want. Please, very simple, please. You take the child's hand, bring it to their chest, you say the word, please, please, or thank you, or how about no thank you, no thank you. You can also do more, and then when they're all done, they can just go, just done. That's all. They want to tell you things. They want more food. You want to teach the process, teach them how to say please. That's all part of the process of learning. It's part of self-control training. It takes time. Yes, it takes time. But for you who have the little ones from 8 months on, well, by the time your child's 15 months old, they should be able to handle 4 or 5 of these. And it's really beautiful. Our grandchildren have done this. It saves you so much, not only in the high chair, but when they want something, they can begin communicating. Often my granddaughter, our first one, when she wanted something, she was just please, and she would point. And we knew immediately. We did not have to try to interpret her language. She was able to focus her communication on exactly what she wanted, which helped with the self-control training. And again, it's so important that you do not stifle their creativity or any of their natural abilities by allowing them to whine. And one more thing on the signing. Don't worry. If you teach a child to sign, they're not going to lose out on verbal skills. We know that's not going to happen. You could teach them to sign and they will still gain the normal process of learning how to speak. Now let's go to whining in older children. First of all, with older children, the first thing you do is teach them that whining is unacceptable. What a novel idea, huh? By telling them whining is unacceptable. If they whine, you may want to use this to curtail the whiner or help them gain self-control, especially if this is not a repeated offense. Let's say that little Nathan began the process of whining. He wanted something, but he asked it in a whining tone. His mother said, Nathan, Mommy's going to turn the stove timer on for 3 minutes, and she does that. When the bell goes off, then you can ask Mommy correctly. Now, in this situation, the natural consequence was not getting what he wanted when he wanted it. He had to gain self-control. There was time to think about it. And then he had to have the self-control to come and ask Mommy properly. If he doesn't ask properly, the same thing's going to happen until the child learns not to whine, how to communicate correctly to his mom. If that doesn't work, all right, we have to move to the next thing. We have to make whining an objective violation. An objective violation. Now, how do we make whining an objective violation? Well, when we hear little Ryan whine, we're going to say to him as a father or as a mother, Ryan, listen to Daddy. No whining. Now, Ryan, say, yes, Daddy, no whining. you actually get the child to say it back to you. Say your instructions. They hear themselves speak it. And then it hits them in the sense, why did I say that? Now, it becomes objective because they have verbalized it. It becomes black and white now. If they whine, then it should be an immediate consequence. And the consequence, most appropriate consequence for the children that whine and the ages that they whine, which is the early years and part of the early middle years, the most appropriate consequence will be, unfortunately, will be chastisement. So, whining. You know, it's obnoxious, folks. I remember Jennifer started to whine. And she was old enough, apparently, to remember that she started to whine. Well, we got right on it. We resolved it. She thanked us when she was 12 or 13 years old. She thanked us. She said, Mom and Dad, I haven't been around so many whiny kids. I want to thank you for not allowing me to whine. They are obnoxious. Now the question is that your child? If it is, and since this is a learned trait, we're going to come back to you as the educators, as the governors, as the instructors. Come on, folks, what are you doing? What are you doing? You can deal with whining. You can take care of whining. It is unacceptable. Totally unacceptable for the Christian. There's no reason to whine. Why? Well, because you can approach Mommy and Daddy, because Mommy and Daddy under biblical ethics is approachable. Let's talk about temper tantrums. Temper tantrums. Ladies and gentlemen, temper tantrums are not normal just because they seem to be normal in our society. I was invited to review some statistics on temper tantrums. I was surprised to find out that in 1955, less than 5% of the children would ever attempt to throw a temper tantrum between the ages of 2.5 and 3.5 and 4. In 1985, 85% of all children in that age bracket threw temper tantrums. Now I ask you, what is the difference? Is the change in the water? What is it? The climate? The ozone layer? Obviously, there's only one difference that we can record socially, culturally, and that is the parenting methodology. And some would be quick to say, well, that's because in 1955, children were not allowed to express themselves. No, that's absolutely wrong. Children were allowed to express themselves because they had gained the self-control and they knew how to express themselves, and they knew that temper tantrums was a total violation of the family. It was too much of an assault on the parents' authority, something that they wouldn't even try because they had so much more understanding of the significance of respect and honor for those in positions of authority. A temper tantrum is the ultimate rejection of authority. If you got a child throwing a temper tantrum, I love you in the Lord, but I want you to know you got some work to do. Because that child is telling you, I don't respect you. And listen, it's one thing to throw a temper tantrum at home. No one else is around. It's another thing for your child to blackmail you publicly. Folks, you got problems. And I'm telling you, it's a parenting issue. We're here to help. We can help you. This whole series, everything up to this point, we can help you. But it's a parenting problem. It is not a developmental one. It's not a psychosis. It's not a neurosis. It's not a syndrome. It's not a condition. The child at this point is willing, because of the lack of understanding of the relationship, is willing to put you into the corner through embarrassment, knowing, I will gain the power over you, Mommy or Daddy. Temper tantrum, ultimate rejection of authority. When young children throw temper tantrums, we usually throw about 2 years old. What do you do for a temper tantrum? Pick them up. As soon as they start their temper tantrum, do not talk to them. Do not talk to them. I've said before, you cannot take an adult moral capacity, intellect, and logic and begin the process of talking to your child. You can't do that. You pick, because the child doesn't have that. You're not equal morally. The idea of trying to logically, from an adult logic, communicate to your child why he should be good. A 2.5-year-old you're just wasting your breath. Pick the child up and lovingly put the child in the crib. Now the next person says, oh, well, you can't put them in the crib, because if you put them in the crib for isolation, then they're going to associate the crib as being someplace bad. And every time they go to the crib, they're going to sense that it's punishment. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous. You mean to tell me the woman that holds you and loves you and nurtures you and puts you in your jammies, when she puts you in that crib, she's in a hostile mood every night? If that was the case, maybe you got an argument. When mommy is in the process of instructing, when mommy is isolating and putting the child into the crib or playful, whatever it may be at this age, there's a big difference between that woman and the woman that's loving me and nurturing me and putting me down and tucking me in bed and saying prayers with me. They're not going to get confused. So under 2.5, isolate. Nothing more has to be done. Isolate. You know what may be best? Maybe they need a nap, and so after they're isolated, they may fall asleep, and that's probably the best thing for the child. If the child is older, though, where the child is much more cognitive of what they're doing, they know what they're doing. In this case, pick up the child, deposit them into their room, because they need an audience, by the way. You see, a temper tantrum is no good. They need an audience. Somehow, it's worthless to the child. There's no audience. They need an audience. So you pick the child up, and you put them in the room with the instructions that when you get control of yourself, then we'll come in and Mom will spank you then. Mom will spank you then. Okay? Yeah, this after, when you get control, eventually they will get control. The best thing you can do is prevent temper tantrums. Our kids never threw a temper tantrum. Well, that's not true. Jennifer threw one. She never threw it again. And Amy tried one. But Amy's is very interesting. She told us this afterwards. Amy, we had a babysitter that came over as we went to a Bible study on nights, and Amy heard about temper tantrums. She heard children threw temper tantrums. She even saw children who threw temper tantrums, and she decided, tonight, I want to experience this. I'm going to throw a temper tantrum. And sure enough, we went out to Bible study. The babysitter, it came time for the babysitter to say, Amy, it's time for you to go to bed. Amy thought, this is a good time to throw my temper tantrum. So she threw herself down on the floor. She started pounding her arms, kicking her legs. She says, no, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. And the babysitter, fortunately, was cool, calm, and collected and said, Amy, you look ridiculous down there. What are you doing? And Amy felt, I feel ridiculous. And so she got herself up, and she told us the story afterwards. You know? Your children do not have to experience temper tantrums. They really don't. If they do, okay, let's get some control. That doesn't mean you're a bad parent, that you failed. It means that you may be in the process of failing, though. And this now is a billboard. This now is a warning. Now, some would suggest that if the child throws a temper tantrum, hold them. Just hold them. I agree. I have no problem. You want to hold your child during a temper tantrum? That's good. Now listen, here's the ground rules. If you're going to hold your child, then you hold them all the way. You must be committed to holding them. 20 minutes? While they're screaming, and daddy's holding that child, and they're screaming, I want mommy, and they're trying to kick, you have to hold them. 30 minutes? 40 minutes? Yes, it will work. It will work. I'm serious, it will work. But if you hold them, if you choose that route, you must hold them until they break in your arms. Breaks in terms of that desire to say, I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to defy you. It'll work. You will win. You definitely win. It may be 2 days later, but you're definitely going to win. My only warning, if you're going to do that method, then you have to hold them continually. A frustration tantrum is not a temper tantrum. Please understand the difference. A temper tantrum is when a child willfully defies. They throw themselves down and for whatever reason, and the idea there is, look, I realize I'm going to lose. Did you understand that with a temper tantrum? Basically, I know I'm going to lose, many of the cases, except the ones in public. And so their goal is to drag you into this. Their goal is to get you upset. If I get you upset, mommy or daddy, it is sweet revenge. You see. That's why they need an audience. And the more, a child is going up and down with his arms and his legs, and the more the parent says, oh, honey, why are you doing that? Why, oh, please don't do that, or whatever. The child loves it. The child's got the parent pulled right in. Well, a frustration tantrum is something totally different. A frustration tantrum is associated with a child's desire to accomplish something, but they don't have the motor skills. For example, I remember a little girl who had a number of little dollies, and she was going to put them up on their toy box. And she put them all up in a nice circle, but there was that one more she couldn't get up, and so she just sort of shoved it into the end, and they all fell down. Well, then she tried it all again. She was more careful, but then a few dolls over here fell. And so she tried putting it back up. She became frustrated. And you could see the frustration. You could hear the frustration. It was a frustration tantrum. It is not a temper tantrum. It should not be dealt with the same way. It's not isolation, or you're going to get a spanking, or I'm going to have to hold you now. But what you can do, moms, instead of going in and saying, well, Mom, you'll make it better, you make yourself available. You simply say to the child, it sounds like you're having trouble. Mommy will help you, but you have to ask Mommy. Or Daddy will help you, but you have to ask. Now, if the child continues, and maybe they go to the point where they pick up one of the dolls and throw it, at that point, it is no longer a frustration tantrum. Now we've moved into an offense that means Mommy has to intervene, we have to correct this, and playtime is over for today. In fact, if the frustration tantrum continues, Mommy may, in time, go in and say, no, honey, today is not a good day for you to be playing with your dolls. Playtime is over. But understand that you have to discern, is this a frustration tantrum? A frustration tantrum, listen, is not linked to instructions. Because many parents, we've been in this business long enough, they'll come up and say, well, you know, my child throws frustration tantrums. Every time I tell him to do something, he won't do it, and he just throws himself down. So I know it's a frustration tantrum. No, you've missed the point. That is not a frustration tantrum. That is a temper tantrum. So please do not confuse the two, but understand that there are two of them, two different types of tantrums. Let's talk about dishonesty, a terrible topic to discuss with children. I want to say that both authoritarian and permissive parenting heightens the propensity for dishonesty. They both do. Absolutely. It doesn't matter if you're authoritarian or permissive. At those two extremes, apart from biblical ethics, the chances of you producing a dishonest child is very real. Very much so. Now, there are the three sister sins. Lying, stealing, and cheating. Lying is the most grievous in the Ezo household. And I hope it would be for your household. This is the one sin. It would be better that you broke the windows in the house than for you to lie. Because lying attacks the heart of our family. It attacks the trust that holds us together. Take you back to the Father's mandate. It attacks the glue. It attacks the cohesiveness. If you lie, how can we ever believe you? Lying it's the most grievous sin. And I will say, your children will lie. They will lie. Because you lie. Everyone lies. Psalm 58:3 says, the wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they are born, speaking lies. That means man is not a liar because he lies. Man lies because he's naturally a liar. That's a fact. Lying is one of the 6 abominations spoken of in Proverbs 6:16 through 19. God talks about a lying tongue. Again, it's the most grievous sin because it destroys the bridge of trust linking all of us together as family members. Now, there are 6 basic reasons for children to lie. I want you to just follow this along, filling in your outlines. There are 6 basic reasons why children lie. Reason number 1, children lie to get attention. They want to get attention. It could be attention with peers, it could be attention with parents, it could be attention with siblings. They're trying to get attention. They will lie to get attention. They will make up stories because they desire the attention. Number 2, children lie to gain control. They lie to gain control over a situation or over another person or over a toy. Who had the toy first? I had it first, Mommy. You see, they're lying to gain control. Number 3, they lie to get revenge. They lie to get revenge. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. You know why the Lord says that? Because only His vengeance is right. Only His vengeance is just. When you try to get revenge, it's a very, very lonely road to walk down. Children lie. Number 4, children lie to escape responsibility. Children lie to escape responsibility. Trying to get out of things. Number 5, children lie to get accepted. Children lie to get accepted. They, again, will make up stories, make themselves bigger than life. And number 6, certainly concerned to us, they lie to balance out the parents' unfairness. They lie to balance out the parents' unfairness. Those are 6 basic motivations why children lie. Now the question is, what do you do about lying when it happens in your home with your children? What do you do about it? Number 1, please write in, consider the age. Consider the age. Is it a 3-year-old lying or is it a 12-year-old lying? Consider the age. If it's a 12-year-old lying, you've got problems, especially if they're more characteristic of this, because a 12-year-old has had that many years more of relationship and association and love, and the fact that a 12-year-old would lie among the family, well, that's very difficult to even understand. It's not the same thing with a younger child. So you want to consider the child's age. That's considering their moral maturity level. Number 2, then go to this list. Consider the motivation. Why is my child lying? Could I possibly, as a parent, be at fault? Could I be the one causing my child to lie? Not that that excuses the lie is still rebellion, it's still sin, it still needs to be taken care of. But you honestly have to look. Am I causing this child? Am I provoking this child? Am I leading this child into the temptation of lying? You need to examine yourself as parents. And then another thing you have to consider is the characterization of the child. The child that is not characterized by lying, and one time tells this, what we used to call the little white lie, what are you going to do? You're going to treat that as the same as the child that continually lies? Well, certainly not, but you are going to communicate the seriousness of the offense, whether it's done once or whether it's done 100 times. So you want to consider the characterization. Some parents will chastise for lying with younger children. That often is the way, and a stern talking to. You really want to make a big deal. I mean, you don't want to scare the child, but you want to emphasize that this is one of the most grievous sins in our family, is lying. We do not lie to one another. Do not lie. Another thing you may want to do, along with chastisement, is a logical consequence if the lie was associated with an item, a privilege, personal responsibility. If mommy said, is your bike in the back? And the child said, yes, yeah, I put it back there. And you look out front a few minutes later and there's the bike sitting there. You not only may correct the child through chastisement for lying, but you also may then remove the bicycle also to help support what you're trying to do in the correction process. So lying, that's the first one. That is grievous. Number 2, stealing. Now follow this, folks. Stealing. Stealing also weakens trust. It robs the bridge of trust. Stealing. Stealing, unlike lying, is a graded offense. It's a graded offense. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, what we mean is that stealing a cookie versus stealing $100, that's not the same thing, right? A child goes to the cookie jar and takes a cookie. Is it still stealing? Yes. Is trust violated? Yes. But the offense is not as grievous as if the child stole $100, knowingly stole $100. And now let me add to that. Stealing a cookie at home is different than stealing a cookie from the bakery. Big difference. You know why? When a child steals a cookie within the family structure, shame is brought to the child. When a child steals the cookie from the bakery, shame is brought to the entire family. Therein lies the difference. The entire family now is impugned. The entire family now is brought under that bondage. The entire family, in a sense, is accused. You treat it differently. It's all stealing, it's all wrong, but the emphasis of correction and the consequences and the seriousness has to be considered based upon the nature of the offense. And if they're stealing, of course, there's going to be chastisement. More important, it's going to be restitution. We talked about restitution in our last session. Restitution is a biblical concept. When you make a mistake, then restitution is usually one-on-one. You break the cookie jar by accident, we buy them a new cookie jar equal to or better than the cookie jar they had. But when stealing is involved and you're working with your children, restitution should not be one-to-one. I mean, you may use one-to-one, but it should be maybe 2-to-1 to help get the point across, 3-to-1. In other words, for every dollar stolen, there's $2 have to be paid back. You'll remember Zacchaeus paid what? 4 times back for those who he had defrauded. So it should be more in terms of restitution. And it's more not so much that you're going to give to the person more, but so that the one who was the offender will learn the seriousness of stealing. And of course, if there's stealing and there has to be restitution, there should be labor. And we talked about labor. You need to go back over your notes back when we talked about the character development series on the issue of dominion and labor. Another thing regarding stealing, I want you to understand that stealing is not always tangible. Stealing someone's time. You know, you're supposed to be someplace at 7 o'clock, you need to be there. Now, where there's a give and take. You could have a 2 or 3 minute or 4 or 5 minutes. We understand that. We understand there's traffic. We understand there's weather. But when you become characterized by always being late, when someone else is counting on you, you are stealing from them. And that's the type of stealing where there is no restitution. What are you going to say? Well, I'll just stay 5 minutes later. Well, what do they care if you're going to stay 5 minutes later? There's no restitution on that. You steal from other people every time you demonstrate the characterization of your tardiness. And then perhaps the most insidious way of stealing is through gossip and slander. When you steal another man's or another woman's good reputation. That is the worst kind of stealing. To steal another man's reputation, good reputation, through gossip, through slander, through a biting tongue. You know why that's so bad? Because once you steal it, you can never give it back. There is no restitution for that. There is no restitution. There's no way you can go back and pick up all of the bits and pieces of gossip and the spread of it all once you've started it. Teach your children to guard their tongues. And then the third sister sin is cheating. You know, when we were growing up, we heard the cliche, in school, certainly by teachers, when you cheat, you only hurt yourself. Folks, when you cheat, you hurt more than yourself, because cheating goes beyond that. I am amazed at how many parents actually encourage cheating. They sit down and want to play a game with their children. Their children, in an attempt to win, will cheat. And mommy will let them cheat. All for the name of self-esteem. Well, you know, I want my child to feel good about themselves. Really? You mean your child's going to feel good about themselves by cheating? No, they don't feel good about themselves by cheating. They're not boosting their esteem by cheating. If you have questions about this whole issue of how to rightly deal with the issue of worth and a favorable opinion of self and what God has to say about it, we'll invite you to our other series, God, Worth, and Self-Worth Crisis, which speaks to these issues. But I could assure you, you're not boosting your child's esteem, his love of self, by letting him cheat in games or letting him cheat with his brothers and sisters. Letting him cheat. Listen, Mom, you have the younger child, letting the younger child cheat so he could be equal to the older children and saying to the older ones, the older siblings, well, he's the baby. Just let him win this time that way. He doesn't know any different. Folks, we don't achieve success through violating moral standards. Again, right is right for everyone in the family, and wrong is wrong for everyone in the family. Age is no exception to these issues of lying, stealing, and cheating. Well, let's leave those, and let's now go to sibling conflict. Sibling conflict and sibling rivalry are not the same thing. Please understand that. Sibling rivalry takes place when the children feel actually they are not loved. They're going to begin to rival each other for love. They're seeking attention. They're hoping that by their actions you're going to communicate more love to them. You see, that's sibling rivalry. Sibling conflict takes place because they have a bunch of sinners living in the house. That's why. Sibling conflict is natural. In fact, if there wasn't any sibling conflict, I'd be a little bit concerned for your family. Sibling conflict is natural. When children have conflict, first thing to do is to teach. You want them to learn how to resolve their own conflict. That's the place to start. Now, sometimes mom will intervene or dad will intervene. There were times when I went in, look, you need to sit over here and you need to sit over here, and in 5 minutes I'm going to come back, and if you could play together then, I'm going to let you play. If you can't, then we're going to put this game away. So sometimes mommies and daddies will intervene, but as often as you can, help your children resolve their own conflict. One way to do it, one way we found to work is I did say sometimes, when I look at the end results, I can't say that this was necessarily a bad way. I did say to them, if you two cannot resolve this conflict, then I will resolve it with a spanking. And I used to hear the girls talk, look, I'm not going to get in trouble because you won't work with me. We're going to settle this right now. They learn to resolve their conflict. And I talked to you earlier about this way back in the beginning. Conflict resolution in the family is absolutely necessary if you're going to develop strong, loving relationships. Conflict avoidance is dangerous. Conflict avoidance is when mommy goes in and says, okay, well, you got a ball, and here, mom will give you the ball, and I'll give you this truck, so now you play. Mommy's always trying to negotiate a peace. Stop trying to negotiate peace. Start teaching your children how to resolve conflict among themselves, because someday you two are not going to be there. Mommy and daddy, you're not going to be there, and they better learn to love each other and love each other right, because they're going to need each other. Well, finally, let's move quickly to tattletaling. Tattletaling. There are 3 reasons why children will come to you. 2 of the reasons are legitimate, and they should not be construed as tattletaling. Number 1, a child will come to mommy and tell on a brother or sister for health and safety reasons. Health and safety reasons. Mommy Jenny's in the medicine cabinet, and she's just shaking all the medicines and all the pills together. The child is coming to tell us. It's a health and safety reason. It's a love concern. That's legitimate. That's not tattletelling. The second is, the reason they come is for justice. Especially, ladies and gentlemen, the first child. The first child who sees life as black and white. The first child loves justice. They love justice. They want to exercise justice themselves, but, you have to train them. No. Mommy will exercise justice, or daddy will exercise justice. If she does something to you, you don't strike back. You come to us. And when they come, then you better deliver on that justice, because they're counting on you. They are trusting you. Don't violate that trust. If it's something that you need to act on it. The third reason a child comes is really for tattletelling. In our household, the tattletaler received the spanking. It did not matter what the other child did, the tattletailer. Because tattletailing is one of the most grievous of all sins. It's right up there with lying. You know who tattletales on us? The accuser, who's always telling God about our sins. He's always tattletaling, and that's the very reason that Jesus Christ died on the cross. Tattletailing is a very grievous sin, because you have a sibling coming in the hopes of another sibling getting hurt, pain being received, the other sibling getting a spanking. Now think that through. You actually have a sibling who's finding pleasure in the consequences another sibling is going to receive. And you can tell the tattletale attitude. They come with a little spanker in their hand and say, Mommy, she did this, get her. In fact, get her now. Right? The girls only did tattletaling once, twice, maybe 3 times. And they realized that if they were going to come and talk to us about something, they're first going to learn how to resolve the conflict, but if they needed to talk to us, they came in humility, because humility is the only thing that saved them. You know what humility equates to? Self-control. Self-control over the mouth. Self-control over the passions. Self-control over the emotions. You see, folks, if nothing else, I'll help you understand that all of this ties together from the time they are little all the way up. It all ties together. And then finally, no session would be complete, especially when dealing with discipline issues. I have to say something about the strong-willed child. I have to say it because we have seen strong-willed children. I can assure you there are such things as strong-willed children. I could also assure you, listen now, without question, there are many more weak-willed parents than there are strong-willed children. Many more. It is out of proportion. Without question, this is the number one cliche. Parents either start their questions off when they speak to us by saying, I have a strong-willed child, qualifying the question, hoping that I will qualify my answer, or they add this at the end. They give us their question, and by the way, he's a strong-willed child. In our estimation, 95% of those who think they have a strong-willed child do not have a strong-willed child. Not in the clinical sense, not by definition, not by the original author's intent. It was never the author's intent that it would become a slogan parents would use to dismiss their faulty parenting. That was never the intent. And we remember when it came out in the mid-70s. We warned parents then, this will become an epidemic. Why? Because everyone, whoever did anything in terms of ongoing defective parenting will attach that and say, it's not my fault, not my fault. I'm not to blame. God gave me this child. Nothing I can do. Ladies and gentlemen, every child is strong-willed. We talked about that a couple of sessions ago. The issue is not breaking the will. The issue is not breaking the spirit. The will is morally neutral. The will is not corrupt. The flesh from which drives the will is corrupt. If it's strong-willed, then you only plug that strong-willed into a moral value system so that the strong-willed then will have something to operate from. Every child has a sense that there's a portion of that child that it's a hill they're willing to die on. You get that, and some of you have a child that's definitely more outgoing. You say, oh, he's so strong-willed. And some of you definitely, there's a child that seems like, oh, this child is so easy compared to my other children. Folks, that's the one to watch. That's the one to watch. We have been in this business long enough to tell you that's the one to watch. That complacent, that easy child. That child strong-willed in brain. The other one's just strong-willed in brawn. This one, brain. They know exactly what to do, exactly how to get around it. I mean, I look at Amy and Jenny. Both are very determined. For Jennifer, she sees a goal and she's going to go after it. If there's a tree in the way, she'll step over. If there's a boulder, she'll go around it. If there's a pit she needs to, she'll jump it. She doesn't just go without thinking. Amy, just as determined. People will see Amy, so Amy's not as determined as Jenny. Oh no. Amy's just as determined. But Amy would check out for the booby traps. Jenny, you go first. We worked on that. Amy is just as determined. Same thing with your children. They are just as determined. The manifestation of that determination, the manifestation of that self-will tendency, and by the way, self-willed, it would be the theological concept. Strong-willed is a psychological term. Self-willed is a theological term, theological concept. If you ask me, is there such a thing as a child that's really, really hyper? Yeah. But I don't think anyone in this room has any. You don't have any. I'm sure you don't have it. It is so rare that what we have done is we have blanketed everyone with the cliche, oh, that was never the author's intent. Never the intent. Another thing, stop biblically labeling your child in front of people. I said this a little earlier, I can say it again as it relates to this. To us, we are embarrassed when a parent says to us in front of their child, oh, little Johnny here, he's so strong-willed. Don't say that. Don't do that to your children. Don't embarrass your children. They hear that. Don't do that to your child. You're robbing them of their dignity. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to put that cliche to rest for the sake of our children. You're offering more of a commentary on your training than you are on the child's personality. I'm just warning you. I'm not saying there isn't such a thing. Again, we have seen them. We probably see more children than the average clinician who works with children. We work with children. We work with parents and children. We see big children, little children. We see children from minorities. We see children from different backgrounds, from different countries. We know children. I assure you, we have seen a few, by the clinical definition, super strong-willed children. And when that happens, then we start to look at chemical problems and chemical imbalances. From everything else, we look at emotional problems stemming from potentially defective parenting. Well, let me close the session. There's so much more to say, but I want to challenge you, moms and dads. Let's get serious about our parenting and focus more on our child's potential than focus on their limitations. I want you to focus on more, as I said from the very beginning, the very first lesson, the very first paragraph. Focus more on what is morally right, or at least equal to what is morally right, as you do with what is morally wrong. You should be elevating the good as much as you are suppressing the evil. You should be focusing on your abilities as much as you focus on your limitations. We have more to talk about in the wrap-up session. Let's go.
Well, this has probably been one evening that you're thankful arrived, because there was these everyday topics that were covered, and Gary purposely left some discipline issues out so that we could devote more time in the wrap-up and covering them. And one that we particularly want to start with, I'm going to open it with a verse from Proverbs. Proverbs 26:4-5. It says, "Do not answer a fool according to his folly, lest you also be like him. Answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own eyes." Now, Eric and Julie, we've gone over this verse, and also in counseling parents, we are finding more and more this issue of physical and verbal freedom. And this so much applies. I know the notation I made in my own Bible when I first read it, I put parents talking too much to their children. But as a result of that, the children become wise in their own eyes with their talking back, and it opens up all kinds of problems within the home.
Maybe we should define what some of these problems are.
We found that parents focusing on just those things that are offensive or are that bug them, rather than really what is other-oriented, to considering others around them, other siblings, or other people.
Exactly, and gosh, I mean, so many things flood my mind of how to begin with this topic of verbal freedoms. Many people allow their children to almost, if it's done in a polite way, usurp their authority, where they become wise in their own eyes. I'll give you an example. You hand them apple juice in a cup, and they said, "Oh, no, thank you, I would like orange juice." Or you say, "Okay, would you please go put on your red coat?" And they come out, and they're in their blue coat. I decided this is the one I would like to wear. Now, if they do it in a polite manner, often we as parents just kind of ignore it, or it's convenient for us because they become independent, or they are doing for themselves, so we say, "Okay, I need you to get a jacket on, you got a jacket on, let's go." But what we're finding is as these things are let go, they become feeling wise in their own eyes, and then therefore they will go toe-to-toe with you on issues that you're wondering, where did this come from? I've had this obedient child all day long, and now it's time for bed, and they won't stay in bed. Or, some other area where they decide, I'm gonna challenge my mom and dad in this area.
Well, that gets back to what you were saying, Eric. We parent only for those offenses that bug us. So now the child has learned that there are certain areas that I can challenge subtly. So when conflict does come, they're willing to
start doing things that were just things that should have been asked an approval before she did them. Not that the act in itself was wrong, but she took it upon herself to give herself the approval to do it, rather than say, "Mom, would it be okay if I washed my hair? Or would it be okay if I jumped in the shower because I'm kind of warm?" Younger the children are, they need to ask approval to do these things.
And as they're characterized by good behavior, as they're characterized by making appropriate choices, there's nothing wrong for your child to want milk over orange juice. if they're characterized by always wanting to change things, you should raise a yellow flag for parents to realize, maybe I'm letting my child get away with some things that they shouldn't be.
And it's not, the issue of characterization is important, but if you're beginning to see that when it comes to issues where obedience is required, and there's continually that challenge, this definitely may be something that you need as parents to sit back and evaluate. Am I giving them too many verbal or physical freedoms? And as you mentioned so clearly with the examples, none of them are really moral issues. I mean, it's not like they're blatant areas. So, there's that fine line, because obviously we do want our children to make choices. We want them to take some first level initiative. We've dealt with all of those issues. But when it comes to submitting to your leadership and your authority, and if you see you're coming head to head, this would be an area where you really need to look at.
Absolutely. Too many verbal and physical freedoms.
So in other words, it might manifest itself not in those individual acts, but in other times during the day they may test you, or at school they may test the teacher. You can kind of come back to that point to say, am I allowing some of these other things during the day to slip through?
And you may be thinking, well, that none of these are a big deal to me. And that would be our major concern, is that you would start reflecting, well, some of your other areas are because of this.
Exactly.
Good.
We've shared this quite a bit with groups, and we can see lights turning on left and right across the room with parents. That's my child. How did you know? That's my child. My child's 7. My child's 8. My child's 9. My child's 3. How do I deal with this? And we have shared, we need to bring the boundaries in. I know we can continue with the illustration of the young lady that we were all working with. How much did those parents have to bring the boundaries in? And we were dealing with an older child. We were not talking about a 3-year-old.
This 7-year-old's mom, we counseled together, and we really thought through the issues, and we just pretty much decided together that we would try her having to request pretty much everything, whether she got a drink upon going outside. She needed to request, would it be okay if I go outside, Mom? Mom kept her pretty close at tabs. And at first, things got a lot worse. I mean, the rebellion in the child kind of manifested itself. I can't make a move, because she was used to so much freedom. You could tell you had hit a chord with her, because at that point, she started feeling very frustrated that everything she did, somebody, was right there. But in turning the corner, the little child's countenance, there was no longer toe-to-toe, and this mom was going toe-to-toe almost daily or every other day with chastisement with a 7-year-old. And so she just kept thinking, what am I doing wrong that there's not improvement? But upon doing this, the child's countenance has changed as far as she has finally learned the meaning of submission and what that truly means. And her sibling relationships have improved, her relationship with her mom and dad. And of course now, because of good behavior, they're able to give her a few of these areas back. And so that's where they began, with structure. A lot more structure.
And so as parents, too, you want to think, where am I? Which phase of parenting am I in? In this particular case, they really were in the training phase of their parenting, but this child, even though it had been a number of years that they were working with her, she had not learned to submit to her parents' authority, so that they were really dealing with so many things that you would be in the disciplinarian phase. But before they could move any further with her training, they had to get this area under control. So if you're starting out and growing kids and you've already got a 7 or an 8-year-old, you may have to apply many of the principles from the disciplinarian phase in bringing in those boundaries, but just be encouraged to know you're not going to need to stay there for 5 years. If you're consistent, and this is where God's grace comes in, because there were many things we did in ignorance, but now we know the right path, and so we're going to alter the course.
Honey, help me understand again, just so we make sure we understand this. How do I bring in the verbal freedoms? The physical freedoms, no problem. How do I bring in the verbal freedoms? What does a mother say?
Well, there could be a number of ways. One that quickly comes to mind in thinking about it, if the child is in the habit of, but Mom, or, well, can I just say, when Mommy asks you to do something, the only response is, yes, Mommy.
And that gets back to what we had talked about earlier.
Exactly. Or just saying, I'm serving you apple juice today, and that's your choice. I'm sorry, I don't want to hear anything more about it. And see what the response is. That'll be a good indicator whether your child really has a problem in their choices. Now, at that point, do they just go crazy and begins sobbing and, really fighting with you, then you will know, okay, I've been probably giving them too many choices if they cannot accept my authority and just say, okay, it's fine for today. And this is brings up another thing what you were saying about bringing the Lord into all of this. We need to pray for wisdom. And I know the mom that worked with the 7-year-old, I was helping her pray too, that the Lord would show her, it would glare at her where all these areas were. And she said by the end of the day, she called me and she says, well, I'm up to 25. Is that enough? So I think if you really are teachable and desire to make these changes, the Lord will show you. The Lord will show you where the child has crossed the line.
And that's what you all, as a small group that are meeting together every week, hopefully, after especially all these weeks together, you've developed a relationship so that you're holding each other accountable and that you're praying for one another so that I'm just not struggling through this on my own, but I've got people that understand, that are praying for me, that are helping me work through some of these issues. You touched in this particular issue, as this little one improved in the area of freedoms, that her sibling relationships improved. I'd like to turn the corner a little bit now, and Gary, you talked about siblings in this lesson, but just for us to develop that a little bit further and the importance of the siblings, even tying in some of last week's lesson with the issues of repentance and forgiveness and restoration.
Well, parents need to realize that an offense against the parents is just as important as offense against other children. And so parents need to follow the guidelines as outlined in Scripture, growing kids God's way in terms of restoration and seeking forgiveness to the family, whether it be a parent or a sibling, and sometimes to an entire group.
Mm-hmm.
Your children, to use a very beautiful word, are very tender towards each other. I know that this is, again, not a matter of genetics. I know it's a matter of training. How did you cause their relationship to be so tender? Even when there's correction, they're tender.
You're right about that. Even though we do parent in private, there's no doubt in our home that everyone knows when someone's being disciplined, particularly in the area of chastisement, and the whole house kind of freezes up for that one moment because they're all concerned and a little worried about their brother and sister and what they're going through.
There's no joy in seeing the other child get spanked or to be punished or to lose a privilege.
Yeah.
Well, and some of that has been a result of the weism within your family. Correct. Each child realizes that they are an integral part of the team, and so their self-centeredness has not been fed, that they do view each other, we are a whole team, and when somebody in our team is suffering or has done a wrong, they feel just as badly about it as if it had been themselves. And that does make a big difference because, again, we realize that all of you have joined us at different phases in your parenting, different parenting practices, and you may hear something like this and think, I don't know if I can ever get there.
You can, because the Apostle Paul said to the Corinthians, but we are one body, we are one family. Mm-hmm. When one hurts, we all hurt. When one has joy, we all have joy. Mm-hmm. He did not leave us some idealistic agendas. He left us something that's very practical, goals that we can accomplish, and you guys certainly have done this.
And we do have conflicts. We have conflicts amongst parent and child, and we have sibling conflicts. But I think the thing we'd like to encourage parents to do is to have a long-term outlook, to not look at just stopping bad behavior, but to build and encourage the family unit as a positive thing.
Right, and have a consistent standard. I think that will help siblings feel very much, well, if I did this, I would be in the same place as that child. And so they don't think there's a rule for them that isn't for another sibling in the home. That, hey, this is the way Abel's act, and if you choose not to act this way, there are consequences. And they all know the standard, and they all know the consequences.
You have shared with us a very tender story that demonstrates just the tenderness between the siblings. Share it, please. I want our people to be edified by that.
We had been working on a particular behavior with our daughter Brooke, who has a tendency to be very passive in her rebellion. She's not a child who does active rebellion. And so her type of anger she demonstrates is one where she grits her teeth and shakes when she's upset with you. So I had really been working on it with her and told her that there would be some consequences, that I had seen it too frequently. And so she and her brother Blake were in the bedroom, and they had had an incident, and Blake spoke to Brooke and said, you know, Brooke, we really need to go talk to Mom about this. And so he brought her very tenderly to me and said, and holding her hand the whole time, said, Mom, Brooke really has something she needs to talk to you about. And Brookie's in tears, and she's crying, and she said, I did that mean, ugly face to Blake. And she said, I asked for forgiveness from him. And I said, I know, Brookie, but Mommy did tell you that we were going to deal with this differently this time. There would be some consequences. And so Blake, knowing how difficult chastisement is for Brooke, he grabbed her hand and he said, well, I'll take you to your bedroom. And he walked her to her bedroom and took her in there. And he felt very badly that he may have been, you know, partly the cause, but I, you know, helped him understand we wanted to keep Brooke's heart pure, and so this was part of the process.
He came with a really sensitive attitude, and we appreciated that. And I know Julie praised him afterwards, which speaks to a relationship and helps to encourage that relationship.
Right. Reinforces the tenderness that you're trying to achieve, and that's what we want for you folks. We want the tenderness in your family, but that is part of relationships, so therefore relationships need to mean something. And if relationships are going to mean something, then there has to be modeling, there has to be trust, there has to be every lesson we've given you so far in growing kids constantly.
Oh, and there is a lot, isn't there? Don't be overwhelmed. Just take a little bit at a time. Pray for the wisdom and the direction to go in. And this is probably a good place to wrap up for this evening. So once more, we trust that you will do your homework, read it through, answer the questions again, and then join us in the next session as we discuss the appeal process.